Welcome back to video number 7 in my Pango Music Flying V P90 kit. I know it's been a while since my last video, but I'm currently in the middle of a moving from Arizona out to Indiana. But I wanted to go ahead and get this video out as I've had the footage for a little while. This video is actually kind of in two parts. There's a section of the video at the beginning where I'm doing some fretboard cleaning and fret end dressing that I actually did before I did final assembly on the guitar. And then I let this guitar set for about a month or so just to kind of acclimate, get used to string tension. That way I could go through and make sure the neck relief was right. I could go ahead and set my action, set my intonation, cut the nut slots to the proper height, and go through the final setup of the guitar. I have not done a level crown and polish on the frets. It's actually very playable without that once I cut the nut slots to the proper depth to get the strings to the proper height. And then set the action at the bridge. As a reminder, this video is sponsored by Pango Music. They were kind enough to send me the kit to do the review on, so I'd like to say thank you very much for them for doing that. Also, if you like what I'm doing, please click like, click subscribe, follow along with the channel. So let's get rolling and dive into final setup on this guitar. So to dress the fret ends, what I'm going to be using is my Crimson fret dressing file. What I'm going to do is I just want to clip the edges of these frets over a little bit. Only one or two passes, but I'm going to put it against it. And just go in, and what that's doing is that's just going to remove the sharp edge on the base of that fret. And notice I'm not rolling over the top of the fret. All I'm doing is just right at the edge. It's got the safe edge on the file, so it's not hurting my fretboard any. And I'm just bringing that little sharp edge, just nipping it off the end of the fret. Let me bring you in here really close to see how close I can get to see if you can see what's going on here. If you can see right here on this fret, see it's still kind of got a little bit of an edge sticking out on the side. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you up close fret number 13. If you can see on there, right at this edge here, it's still got a little bit of a sharp edge, just a straight edge on the fret. So what I'm doing with that is I'm going to round that off. Now if you can see the 13th fret, what I've done is I've just taken the point off the edge of the fret where it meets the fretboard. I've just taken that point off. That way as I run my hand up and down through here, I don't catch anything sharp. And as you see, it's super easy. All you need is a fret dressing file, fret and dressing file. This one I got from Crimson Guitars, but you can get them from StewMac, you can get them from a lot of different places. I've dressed the fret ends. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little time and clean up my fretboards and clean up my fretboard and my frets. What I'm using to do that with is I've got some fret erasers. These are from Crimson Guitars. You can get them from StewMac. You can get them from a lot of different places. Basically, it's like a pencil eraser with an abrasive in it. So I've got a fine, a super fine, a medium, a fine, and then a coarse. I've already went over it with the coarse, so I'm not going to do the coarse again. I am going to go over it with the medium. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit each of the frets, and I'm going to hit the fretboard as well. And that's going to clean any residue off the fretboard that I have. It allows me to get right into the edge of the fret, and I'm doing that area where we just did the fret dressing as well. I'm just going to do the fretboard first, then I'll come back and do the fret ends. And all I'm doing is clean up any residue or anything like that that might have got on the fretboard. You don't hurt your fretboard at all by doing this, because this is, even though it says coarse or medium on it, it's still a very fine. It's not like sandpaper, so it's not like taking 80 grit sandpaper to my fretboard here. I'm paying attention to get the fret ends when I'm doing the frets at the moment. All right, so that's it with the medium block. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on through the rest of the grits. I'll use the fine and the super fine just to put the final polish on these, and I'll bring you back when I'm done. You don't need to sit here and watch me file away on frets. All right, now that our frets have been cleaned and polished up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and condition the fretboard. And what I'm using for this is just some Music Nomad F1 oil for fretboard conditioning. This cleans and conditions your fretboard. I'm just going to put some oil down on here. Now I'm just going to rub this in. So you can see that darkens that fretboard up a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this sit for a little bit, and then I'll come back in and I'll buff that excess oil off of there. So now what I want to do, the guitar's been strung up for about a week now with tension on the strings and everything, and I want to go ahead and kind of show you a couple things of what the guitar looks like prior to doing the setup, and hopefully what it's going to look like afterwards. You can see that the nut is a little high, because you can see when I hold down at the 3rd fret, look at the amount of gap between the string and the 1st fret. Ideally you want that 1st fret right down, almost touching. It's good that the nut is high right now. You want to have the slots in the nut a little bit high at the moment, because you don't know what guitar it's going on, you don't know how the setup was going to be. And now what we're going to do is we're going to file this nut down to get to the point where the strings are closer to that 1st fret. I did set the relief on the neck. Let's see if we can get a good picture in here of this. To where what I have right now, let's see if we can get in here and see through there or not. Don't know if that's going to come through on the video, but there's just the slightest amount of gap right in this area where I've got just a little bit of relief in the neck, which is perfect. That's what I want. I've got the action set relatively about where I want it to be. As far as that goes right now, this is going to change once I file the nut slots down, because that's going to drop the front of the string down, which is in essence going to drop even right in this area of the strings down a little bit. So this will be a multi-stage thing. So I have a couple different tools that I'm going to be using. First thing I want to do is I want to determine how high the frets are. And for that I'm going to use a micrometer. I am setting it to inches because that's what my feeler gauges are in. Zero this out. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to set it down here, and we're going to see how tall the fret is. 0.058 inches. So that's how tall my fret is. So I know I don't want to go any deeper than that on my front slots. So what I've got now is I've got 0.58. So I want to go, let's go 0.65. That's going to be a good starting point and a good reference point to get me where I want to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my feeler gauges and I'm just going to 0.65. Actually, here's a 0.64. 0.064. So I'm going to combine the 0.030 and 0.034. I've got this little cradle right here that's going to sit on the neck. And what I can do is I can slide that through and snug this down. You don't want to over tighten it. You just want to snug it to where you got that radius in there. So let's bring you in here and see it. So you can see that slips onto the back of the neck. The feeler gauges go through, and I've got it bumped up right against the nut. So now what I can do is I can pop each string out of the slot, take my nut file, and file down to that depth. This one is a 10. So I'm just going to pop it out of the slot, and my closest file to that is the 12. So you want to file kind of at an angle a little bit. I usually follow the headstock angle. And what I can do now is I know that I can go all the way down till I hit this. We're pretty close now. Bring it in here and see if you can see this or not. That slot is considerably deeper now, and it's right down to the feeler gauge. So I know that I'm still going to have to fine tune a little bit, but this is going to get me into the ballpark. This one is a 13.5 because I do use a hybrid string set. So I'm going to go with 0.20 on this one. This one's a 17, so I can continue to use my 0.20 or 0.2 on this one. Now, another trick, you'll notice how these strings break slightly coming off the nut. That's also a binding spot. So a good trick is to just file that nut slot at a slight angle. And I'm kind of putting it more at the angle that it would be at with the string going to the tuner. That way, it's not coming straight out and then breaking, so you don't have that bind point at the back. Let me just show you this real quick, see if you can see the difference here. Don't know if you can see the difference in the nut slots, but this one here is uncut yet. That was what it came from out of the kit, and there's where I'm cutting it down to. So you can see it's quite a bit of difference going down through. So what we're going to be doing after we get all the fret slots to to where they're going to be, we're actually going to file this nut down to get it closer to the string, so it'll be more representative of this, how the string is sitting in where the top of the string is kind of even with the top of the nut. That's kind of what we want to see in the finished product. So let's file this one down. You can see it's a much better distance now, just even from where it's at right now to that first fret. Right now I'm just in the process of fine tuning. So what I'm doing is, they were really close. I'll show you, let's bring this in, see if you can see how well you can see it. But there I am holding at my 3rd fret, and you can see as I press my 1st fret, just a little bit of movement there. And what I want to do is take that most of that movement out. You can see here on my G string, there's still a little bit more movement there. So what I'm going to do, just detune it a little bit. And I just want to make a couple passes at a time. This one had quite a bit of space. Still a bit more. There we go. That's better. See, there's just a little bit of movement now. I'm actually going to take that down just a little bit more. It's always good just to take a few passes with file at a time, because you can always take material away, but it's very difficult to add it back. That's better. So there's my nut height set, and as you can see, let's bring this in here and you can kind of see how much work I'm going to have to do on the nut a little bit. You can see the slots and see how deep they are, how deep down the strings go. What I want to do is I'm going to actually draw a line across this, and I'm going to take and file that nut down now to where the top of the nut is pretty much with the top of the strings. And you'll notice I'm kind of going at a little bit of an angle. I'm kind of following that string break angle. Nuts filed down. You can see that looks a lot better now. The slots have a better looking depth on them. Basically the string comes to the top of the slots. So that's about perfect. But as you can see, it cleaned up really nice. And it looks a whole lot better now. All right, so what we want to do now that we've got the guitar tuned up and it's tuned to pitch, and we've got the nut adjusted the way we want the nut adjusted, we've got the action relatively close, what we want to do now is go ahead and do the intonation. What you'll need for this is like a tuner that has some sort of indication whether you're sharp or flat. Most tuners do. This is a Boss TU15 chromatic tuner. I've had this tuner for 30 plus years, still working great. And I do like it for this sort of thing. A strobe tuner is going to be, you know, a high quality strobe tuner is going to be your best option. But what you want to do is you have the string tuned to pitch, and then you fret it at the 12th fret. See how it's sharp? So what that means is my string is too short. So what I want to do is I want to adjust my saddle on my bridge and move it back. I'm actually going to slide it all the way back, just so I can tune it up to where we want it to be. This is going to, of course, when you do that, it's going to change your string. So you want to tune it back up to pitch. And then again at the 12th fret. Now you see it's right where it's supposed to be now. So I'm getting the same, 1 octave higher. I'm the same. So that tells me that my intonation on this string is set to where it's supposed to be. And the rule of thumb is, or basically what you want to do is when the reader meets sharp, you want to lengthen the string. So you move the saddle back towards the back of the guitar. If it's reading flat, you move the saddle towards the nut of the guitar. This one already had it done, but these saddles also have a different shape to them. They're flat on one side and beveled on the other. You can actually take the take it out and flip it around, because if the bevel on this was pointing aft, I wouldn't have been able to adjust this string back or the saddle back as far as I needed to go. So you can take this saddle completely out, reverse it, and put it back in if you need more space. Went through all the strings, my intonation set on all of them. I do like to use my bridge pick, or I do like to use my neck pickup when I'm doing intonations and tuning in that, because it does give I think a truer reading on the strings, because it's more to the center, so you're getting more vibration out of your strings here than you would be back by your bridge. So I tend to always use my neck pickup when I'm tuning my guitar or setting my intonation. So the setup on this guitar is pretty much complete at this point. Basically what we did today was we made sure the relief was where we wanted it to be, and that was a good starting point for the relief. We had our action at a good starting point, so our bridge height at the back was adjusted pretty much to the right spot. Right now this is just about 2 turns up from full bottom, so I do have a little bit of adjustment to go down, and the strings are in pretty good shape as they are right now. Very playable at this position. Then we went through and we deepened our nut slots to get our action right, or to get our nut height right. So if your nut slots aren't deep enough and your strings are sitting way high like what they were when we started today, that can actually cause tuning problems, because when you push down on the strings to fret it, you're having to push the strings so far to get it to the fret that you'll actually pull the string sharp at that point. So we've got our nut height set. We filed our nut back down to where it's a reasonable height above the strings, smoothed it out, polished it up a little bit, so that's good. Then we went through and set our intonation on our bridge. Everything checked good there. So now what I'm going to do is, this thing's ready to play. It's been a great build overall. I'm very happy with it. I have plugged it in. I did try it out. The pickups do sound pretty good on it. I do need to adjust my pickup height a little bit. I need to add a little bit more foam to my bridge pickup. The neck pickup is pretty much in the right spot. It's just below the edge of the neck. I can actually raise it just a little bit, but the sound of them sounded pretty good. P90s can usually sit away from the body a little bit more than what you would want a humbucker sitting away from the body anyway. So here it is, Pango Flying V P90 kit. Super nice. Came out super nice. I'm very happy with the way this build came out. All right, that's going to wrap this video up. This has been a really nice guitar to build. The kit was well put together. Everything was milled and routed to where it's supposed to be. Didn't really require any extra filling or gap filling or anything like that. The neck fit in nice. It was at the proper break angle. I didn't have to do any adjustments on that. Very cheap, actually, to put the kit together. In the end, all I had to pay for really was sandpaper, which I already had stock on hand, and hard wax oil to do the finish. Again, I already had stock on hand. You know, I highly recommend this kit. It sounds nice. I've already played it a little bit. Really happy with it. But if you want a nice guitar at a very reasonable price for the kit and really minimal time to put together, probably about 15 to 20 hours invested in putting this guitar together. The setup went really well. The nut was basically where I would expect it to be on any guitar that you get before you do any adjustments on it, because as you see, it's very easy to take material away, but it's very difficult to put it back in. So again, if you're interested in buying a kit from Pango, there is an affiliate link in my description below. Please click on that. It'll take you to the site. You can buy the kit. It'll apply a discount, and it kicks a little bit of money back to me to help support the channel. If you like what I'm doing, please click like, click subscribe, follow along with what I'm doing. Until next time, thank you for stopping by the channel, and take care.